Hello and welcome to The Print. I am Debdutta and we are in conversation today with Pakistani military expert Ayesha Siddiqa on what is happening in Pakistan occupied Kashmir right now. Now, as we have seen for the past month or so, since 9th of June to be more precise, protests have been taking place in the region for electoral reforms and for economic grievances. And amid that, on 27 July, a three-phased election began in the region, and what followed was violence and killing of people. There is an unverified number of killings right now. The numbers are not verified, but from what we have seen in reports, around 30 to 32 civilians have been killed in the violence as part of the protests amid the ongoing elections. To understand more on what is happening in the region and to unpack the reasons behind these protests, we are in conversation today with Aisha ma'am. And to begin with, ma'am, I would like to ask you a question as to, given that the region has seen such protests for the past month now. So, if I had to understand from you, what essentially do you think is the reason that elections had to be held amid so much violence?
You know, this is nothing new. I mean, wherever state uses authoritarianism, elections are always a justification to the outside world. And and the other is it's to kind of keep the system under control. So there is a pattern which the state doesn't want disturbed and hopes that through the elections, it may be able to bring actors which could then, hold a dialogue, soothe the nerves. Now, the reason that's the first time indeed that elections are taking place in Kashmir in three parts, because there are areas like Punch, Mirpur, etc., which are very hostile to the state, especially regarding, their governance issues. And we're forgetting that although this disruption, this violence between the state and people has just started now, but it goes back to 2023. I mean, there were protests which had started then 2023, then 2024, 2025, apparently, uh, you know, the DGC of the Inter-Services Intelligence, Faisal Nasir himself, was involved with holding a dialogue. These people don't want to kind of leave Pakistan, but they want a proper, better governance. And I think what's important to understand is that, in a way, 2019, after Article 370, they had been for decades, they had kept up with this dream that, the state will be able to one day manage to get hold of Kashmir on the other side of the border. And then, uh, there will be, it will be either integrated into Pakistan or, some people thought it will become independent. And then they'll have their own governance. They'll be able to spend resources on themselves. Yet, after what happened essentially after Article 370, when they also found that the Pakistani army was unable to either militarily or through negotiation solve the issue, they started looking it towards themselves, which was the state of governance, the state of control of Kashmir by Islamabad. Traditionally, whoever has made the government in Islamabad has also made the government in Muzaffarabad, and and of course, a new generation of Kashmiris now, the youth, who are all getting restless and said, all right, um, if the state has not fulfilled its promise, then what about a better control of Kashmir? What about Kashmiris here controlling their own fate, running their own affairs? So, for example, one of the key issues is the 12 seats. So these 12 seats belong to Kashmiris who have somehow migrated from Indian Kashmir, and they don't necessarily live in Kashmir, but they live in other parts of Pakistan, in Karachi, in Lahore, in Gujranwala, in other cities. Now, these could be actual votes or these could be fake votes. But there are 12 seats, and I think, out of the Kashmir Legislative Assembly is, I think, 50 plus. So out of that, 12 seats means that then Islamabad has real control over who makes the government, what resources are spent there. It has greater control. So people started to look towards that. And because of the disturbance, because restlessness is so much, that the government realized that it could not hold elections in one go. It has to hold elections in three parts, uh, and therefore the change.
And how popular is, the JAC or the Joint Awami Action Committee, which is leading the protests? How popular are they on ground? Because even they tried to contest the election as independents, but were disallowed. Among the local populace, how much of a hold do they have?
See, the Jammu and Kashmir Joint Awami Action Committee, JAC, is basically a hodgepodge of trader merchants, of lawyers, of different professionals, civil society people. So it's a movement. And people have, other people have tried to contest elections, but not from JAC platform. Because their argument, the conversation I had with some of their representatives here in the UK, they said that, look, we don't want to make a political party primarily because right now, all other political parties or members of other political parties are sympathetic with us. I mean, whoever is a Kashmiri living in Kashmir is sympathetic. Their leadership may be doing something different, but the people are. And we don't want to kind of bring that division by, I don't think that they were contesting elections, but whoever was PTI was actually Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf of Imran Khan tried to contest elections, and they were chucked out. So they are the only ones. Most probably they are the only ones who've been doing it. Other than that, Jack doesn't have. I mean, it's really a full blown movement. Now the problem with Jack, of course, is that there are incidences of penetration as well by the state. And this is very typical. I mean, you saw it during even the Gen Z movement in Delhi, in Jantar Mantar, that, there were accusations of the state trying to penetrate and create violence. The same way, Jack is suffering from a similar problem. I mean, but otherwise, I think what is important is that the movement represents the aspirations of people and the anger and anxiety of people living in Pakistani Kashmir.
Also, I mean, you also have mentioned this point earlier, but a lot of analysts have seen the relationship between Islamabad and PoK as a client state arrangement. Even there's a fiscal dependency. They are given grants, federal grants to, run their economy. In such a scenario, how important does the economic question become, apart from the political question and the 12 refugee seats where the Jack wants abolition of these seats, the economic
Yeah,
question
yeah,
and the
yeah, I
economic
understand.
condition of POK? If I had to ask you from the economic lens, then how would you define it?
See, 2023, exactly the first kind of murmur, first movement started when electricity prices went up and when wheat was very expensive, wasn't available. So that's when uh, people started to get uncomfortable. And they were like, look, we are the source of water for Pakistan. If Pakistan grows corn and wheat and other readables. It's because of the water coming from here, and therefore, we have a right. Secondly, what their crib is that actually the government is run by bureaucracy. I mean, the committee which takes financial decisions is primarily controlled by Pakistani bureaucrats who are posted in Kashmir. And therefore, the anxiety and the demand that the resources and therefore during the previous government, uh, there were, apparently 10 to 12 billion rupees were sent back to Islamabad instead of being spent in Kashmir. So people are saying that, look, we don't have control over our financial decisions, we don't have control over governance, and we should have it.
And now with with so much violence or reports of violence that we see, what do you think is the way forward for political dialogue between the two parties, given that the region has always seen a musical chair of political parties? Even now both PPP and PMLN are
Yeah.
mostly celebrating their victory, they are not talking about the violence. So if I had to ask you, going ahead, where do you see this situation heading?
See, you have answered your own question. So I'll just add to it. Uh, Political parties understand that they don't have control, but what they want is, it's a game of numbers. So AJK, we have our government. So it's a battle between PPP and PMLN. Bilawal Bhutto tried to talk about rights, etc., but it's really more of a face saver than anything else. PMLN, we know, does not believe in, rights or democracy. So, there's no hope there as well. But I think more important, the political parties understand that the master of the game right now is the army and Field Marshal Asim Munir. So it's not a decision for them to take. There are no negotiations. Any negotiations that will happen will be between the army GHQ and the protesters. Uh, Political parties are just side players. And the fact of the matter is that anywhere in the world where there's been authoritarian control of the territory, politicians are used, by the state to basically to negotiate without the intent of bringing any change. I mean, uh, you're looking at Pakistan. I think let's look at the relationship between India and its Kashmir. It's similar.
And I have one last question for you, ma'am. Based on the constitution on which Kashmir is governed, there are a few, like Article 56, then there's Article 4, which allows for the central government or the federal government in Islamabad to dismiss any kind of electoral power or whoever wins there. Why are, why do these political movements not call for constitutional changes? And given the situation in Kashmir right now with these elections, how will the legislative assembly then function? What is the kind of issues that
I
they
think
vote?
you have not. I think you have not looked at the demands. One of the basic demands of the protesters is that they should have control over the assembly, should not be a legislative assembly, but a constitutional assembly, and it should have the power to make decisions on 42 to 45 subjects. So they are already demanding that. And as far as the elections are concerned, probably you also, I hope you realize that the turnout has been very, very low. So people are not participating.
So, I mean, if I want to understand this, if people are not participating and then elections are taking place, then what happens in the legislative assembly? What kind of issues will then be raised? Has there ever, has there some kind of have some kind of bills been raised in the assembly?
No,
Have
I
some kind of
don't. No, I don't. No, I don't think so. It'll be. I mean, look at what happens in Indian Kashmir. I mean, why do you have to look at Pakistan's Kashmir? Look at Indian Kashmir. Exactly. When I mean, of course, the case is different, but here, when you pretend that uh, a territory has independence when it has not, and the political parties that tend to run it, uh, I mean, what happens then? Nothing. I mean, it's the uh, small issues here and there. That's all. In fact, one of the issues, one of the reasons that Jack came into being is that when they realized, people also realized that uh, the previous prime minister of uh, uh, AJK, his name was, I think, Anwar Ahmad or Anwarul Haq. He was
Varula?
initially PTI and then he joined PMLN. So, what happened in the previous assembly was that you had uh, almost as many cabinet members as members of the assembly. So, all parties were in it. And people were like, there is no opposition. Who's talking? So, people in Kashmir think, and, you know, there is resistance.
For now, the situation seems dire in the region, and what remains of the next two phases in the election remains to be seen. But thank you so much for joining the print, ma'am.